A close call, a moment of danger when life can hang in the balance.
What would happen if I wasn't found or didn't find a way out of it?
A split second when the outcome could go either way.
It's a choice, life or death.
The difference between disaster and survival.
We saw a lady who was critically ill, if not dying in front of us.
I kept thinking the hotel was going to fall on us.
These are the people that have been there and lived to tell the tale. It's a day they'll never forget. The day they had a close call. Today on Close Calls. A US Coast Guard helicopter hovers above a small rowing boat in the Pacific Ocean. It's sinking fast. Below in the darkness, 4 British rowers fear for their lives.
There were waves coming through the size of a house. It was hard to keep hold of the boat as much as anything else because the boat was moving around so much.
3 men make it to safety in the chopper, but there's no room for the rescue diver or the 4th rower.
Not really a religious person, but I said a little prayer that he would be safe and well.
Also today, emergency services take an urgent call from a teenager.
She's passed out, she's not answering.
A little girl has run out into the road and been hit by a car.
How old's the little girl? How old? 4 years old.
The child's mother is with her.
I was just holding her hand and just trying to tell her that I was there. But she wasn't responding to any of us.
The Pacific Ocean, 80 miles off California. 4 British rowers taking part in a challenging race huddled together in their 24-foot boat. They're taking on water and close to going under.
When you're at the bottom of one of the waves and you look up, it's like the size of a house.
They've hung on for 8 hours, but a storm's prevented a rescue yacht from getting close. Now only a US Coast Guard helicopter crew can help, but they're short on fuel.
We talked about our fuel state. We only had so much time on scene.
There wouldn't have been enough fuel to get us all off in one hit.
"35-year-old Fraser Hart works as a computer programmer in London. But in his spare time, he loves nothing better than being outside.
I'm sat there in front of a computer typing all day, 40 hours a week, so yeah, I guess it kind of offers me a bit of balance to get out and do some physical, outdoorsy stuff.
And it doesn't get much more physical than his latest adventure, an endurance rowing race across the Pacific Ocean.
I was drawn to it immediately the second I found out about it. The attraction of looking at something from the outset and thinking it looks physically impossible, but then actually kind of taking the steps to achieving that was quite motivating.
The Great Pacific Race is a 2,500-mile rowing competition that starts in Monterey, California, and ends in Honolulu in Hawaii. Joining Fraser in his 4-man team are Colin Parker, Sam Collins, and James White. Fraser dons the captain's hat.
I felt a lot of responsibility. I was the skipper, so I had the final say if there was any conflict.
Fraser and Colin have been friends since school, but Colin now lives in New Zealand.
There was a meet-up for interested parties in a pub in London. That was the first I heard of it, and I actually said to Fraser, yeah, I'm up for it, I'll do it.
Joining the two friends is marketing manager James White.
Wanting to do something different and bigger for a while, get away from the corporate, the usual world.
And the baby of the team is 24-year-old Sam Collins from Cornwall.
And I'd love to say it was love at first sight, but they were good, we got on well.
We all shared a bit of a similar juvenile sense of humour as well, so that was a very beneficial thing. 100% I'd say we have the perfect team.
For the next year and a half, the 4 men take on a vigorous training routine to get them mentally and physically ready for the most extreme challenge of their lives.
We had to attend a sea survival course and successfully complete that. We had to get a VHF radio licence. We needed to be first aid qualified, and we also needed to complete a Yachtmaster theory course. It was just a huge financial, mental, physical commitment to even get to the start line.
But they do. And in mid-June, the team, along with their specially designed boat, are in Monterey, California for the start of the race. This vessel will be their home for the next few months. It's just 24 feet long with 2 tiny cabins, one at the front and one at the back. The toilet is a bucket, the shower is a sponge, and everything they need for months at sea is crammed into tiny lockers hidden in the floor.
You could barely sit up in either of the cabins without hitting your head on the ceiling. We had a load of equipment in there as well, so we had our survival suits, we had food bulging out the side netting. Yeah, it was pretty uncomfortable.
They set off in the early hours and are filming the entire trip on small waterproof cameras.
And we're off. 6 a.m. first shift.
Everyone was very excited to set off. The idea was there'd be 2 people rowing for 2 hours at a time and 2 people resting for 2 hours, 24 hours a day, until you hit dry land again.
We took off and it was really calm, it was flat, it was like a pond.
Amazing, amazing feeling. Rowing off out round the point at Monterey and going off into the unknown. That's what you do it for.
Good luck, guys!
The day starts well, and it looks like all their training is paying off.
We got into a nice routine. We were rowing pretty quick, nice seas, everything was going in the right direction and we were making really good speed.
The race should take them around 6 weeks to 2 months to complete. But towards the end of day 1, things take an ominous turn.
It was about 12 hours into the race when the weather started to change.
Things had moved on from calm seas. The wind was up and the sea was starting to get choppy. It was a consensus to stop rowing.
They ride out the night, but the bad weather continues. By the middle of day 2, they've hunkered down in the cabin together to escape the storm. Their onboard camera records the scene.
At the moment, and they're rough, very rough.
Later that day, the storm subsides, but Fraser discovers it's left its mark on their boat.
During the night, I'd actually felt water coming up through the mattress that we were laying on.
It didn't seem too serious at that stage, it was just like a little leak, just like a tap dripping.
But over the next few hours, it slowly gets worse. After some investigation, they find the source.
We identified a couple of holes in the wall between the cabin and the deck lockers. You could see that water was coming through these holes.
But we had putty and we had a lot of other tools at our disposal to patch it up.
The team are determined not to give up. They come up with a plan, but it means no one will get any rest.
Try and pump out that locker, that's what you do, right? If there's water in your boat, you get it out. So we pump it out and we check it an hour later and it's filled straight back up again. And we cannot find the source of this water.
It was getting progressively worse and then the main deck was then filling up. So the water was now spreading around the main deck in the boat.
Water is not meant to be there at all. And all of that water coming out of the hatches, stern cabin, we literally can't get water out as much as it's coming in. I remember getting probably the most sad I've ever been out on deck, just watching our boat gently sink and just thinking, this is awful, horrible.
Their troubles increase as the weather takes another dramatic turn for the worse.
The height of the waves was probably about 15 to 20 feet. You know, when you're at the bottom, you look up, it's like, you know, the size of a big house.
But then you're getting hit, and you're getting smashed, and you're going from one side to the other, and then you're getting smashed from another direction.
Couldn't get over the fact that they were just non-stop.
Oh, that was a big wave.
With the situation deteriorating by the minute, Skipper Fraser has no option but to reluctantly call race headquarters for help.
So we have disappointed Chris.
Yeah, we called we put a radio call out to the race support yacht, who then dispatched themselves to come and help us.
The race support boat sets off towards their position, but it's going to take 8 hours to arrive.
We didn't know at what rate we were sinking at that stage, so yeah, it was quite concerning to know that we're so far away.
Realizing they're all in serious trouble, they put on their survival gear. These are really thick suits that will protect them from the elements, and help keep them warm. But Sam is struggling to get into his.
We all took turns putting our survival suits on, so when it came to Sam's turn to put his on, a wave crashed over the boat and filled his suit with water, so he physically couldn't put his survival suit on because his feet were creating too much friction to get into the legs.
So I was borderline hypothermic. The sun was setting at this point, so we knew we were limited on time.
James was hugging him on the front of the boat, trying to keep him warm, and he was shivering, and it wasn't making a lot of sense.
Finally, after a long, uncomfortable and bitterly cold wait of 8 hours, the rescue boat arrives. But the height of the waves and the appalling weather means the support yacht can't get near them. Then seawater blows the electrics, and with it, all radio communication.
That was the worst moment because that was the first time that we realised that actually this could be quite a bad situation.
Later, help arrives, but somebody has to be left behind.
The guy that's in the helicopter closes the door, and we fly away. Without Fraser.
The village of Earls Barton, Northamptonshire. A panicked young woman makes an emergency call to the East of England Ambulance Control Centre. She's just witnessed an appalling accident.
Tell me exactly what's happened. Hello, little girl's just been run over. She's not responding.
4-year-old Jess has been hit by a car and is lying motionless in the road. Her distraught mother, Katie, is with her.
I was just thinking she was dying. There was nothing I could do.
Okay, is she breathing? Yeah, she's breathing.
Jess has a serious head injury. Without urgent medical attention, she's not going to survive. The picturesque village of Earls Barton, Northamptonshire, is home to 4-year-old Jess, her brother Harry, mum Katie, and stepdad Sid.
Jess is crazy. That's the only word to describe her. She's crazy. She's everyone's friend. The teachers love her. She's cuddling the teachers all the time. She's like the mother hen. She looks after everyone.
Stop! Me and my family like to go to the park, play on the swings and roundabout. I love them lots and lots.
It's a warm August afternoon, and the family are heading home after going to a christening reception at the local bowling and tennis club in the village.
The entrance to the bowling club is in an alleyway, and we came out of the alleyway and Harry and Sid were walking in front. It was a really hot day, so I'd stopped to take my shoes off because I had heels on. My feet were hurting, and Jessica was making fun of me and telling me I was so silly. And then she ran off towards Sid and Harry. I didn't realise how far they were ahead. Sid thought she was back with me, and he started to cross the road with Harry. Jess went down the steps and ran out after them.
Close to the steps, parked at the side of the road, with their engine running, a local teenager, Vicky, and her boyfriend, Ant.
Our car was facing down the road. Little Un came running down the steps. She was skipping, she was smiling.
The couple remained stationary as Jess steps into the road.
She knew that we weren't going to pull away because we saw her. So she went in front of Ant's car, just skipping along, and didn't look to her left. And then that was when her car came along.
The woman driver has no chance as Jess appears from nowhere and runs into the middle of the road. She hits the brakes, but it's too late.
I heard the tyres screech and then Sid shout, "Oh my God." I just knew it was one of my two. I just knew.
You could hear the bang. She did go flying. She just looked like a rag doll, which was horrible.
I couldn't get to the road quick enough. Got down the bottom of the steps and then saw Jess in the middle of the road, just laying there, not moving. Her eyes were closed. I thought she was dead.
I jumped out, got my phone, called 999 straight away.
A shocked Vicky is put through to the ambulance control room. This is that call.
Ambulance service, tell me exactly what's happened. Hello, little girl's just been run over. She's passed out, she's not answering. Okay, how old is she? How old's the little girl? How old? 4 years old.
While Vicky briefs the call handler, Katie kneels at her daughter's side.
There was big grazes all the way up her leg. This side of her face here was coming out in a big mark that you could see the road print on it.
18-year-old Vicky stays on the line, feeding back information to the emergency services.
She's not responding. The ambulance has been organised and we're coming to you as we're speaking, okay? Yeah. Try and move her or do anything with her, okay? You need to leave her exactly where she is. Okay, don't keep her in, don't move her.
I remember Sid shouting at me not to move her, not to pick her up. I just kept telling her to keep breathing.
Okay, now is she awake? She's making any noise. Okay, is she breathing? Yeah, she's breathing, but her eyes are rolled to the back of her head.
I was just thinking she was dying. There was nothing I could do. But then she started to come round. She didn't know I was there. She was just kind of staring into space.
She's just making a whirring noise, a pain noise. How far was the little girl thrown? Was she thrown quite a distance? About a metre, 2 metres.
The force of the impact means the chances of Jess having a serious head injury are high. So the emergency call taker also sends for the local air ambulance.
If Mum's there, wants to keep reassuring her, all right? We are trying to do as best as we can.
Sid ran down the road to their nan's house. She's a nurse.
Leaving Harry in his grandfather's care, Sid comes back with Jess's nana.
She took over, basically. She was just checking, doing her observations.
Vicky passes on the information from Jess's grandmother to the call handler.
She's got a large left-sided pupil, and the other eye's not responded to any light. It rolled back slightly. Mum's very distressed, I think, as well. Tell Mum she's doing brilliant, okay? And just get Mum just to keep talking to her. Yeah. The one thing that she needs is to hear Mum's voice, okay?
I was just holding her hand and just trying to tell her that I was there. But she weren't responding to any of us.
Keep letting everyone know that we've got quite a lot of vehicles travelling to her, okay? The helicopter coming as well. Here's an ambulance, we've got an ambulance. Is it? Lovely, okay. Yeah. I'm going to leave you with him, okay? But thank you ever so much for all your help. Yeah.
As Vicky hangs up, the air ambulance comes into sight and within minutes lands in a nearby field. Critical care paramedic Danny Evans is one of the crew.
She'd got a very lowered level of consciousness.
She was deteriorating on the road.
Our concern was that her brain was swelling within her skull. If she didn't get a rapid intervention to that, ultimately it would kill her.
Jess needs to be flown 50 miles to Birmingham Children's Hospital for specialist treatment. There's no room for Mum Katie in the helicopter. The police take her by car.
Kissing your daughter goodbye and then seeing her take off in a helicopter, it's really hard.
The journey takes at least 2 hours by car, but the rapid speed of the air ambulance accomplishes it in just 17 minutes. But that still might not be quick enough to save little Jess.
Her level of consciousness visibly decreased during the flight. So when we landed, there was a full paediatric trauma team waiting.
Jess is immediately put into an induced coma and taken for a CT scan. It shows she has 2 bleeds to the brain, as well as heavy swelling.
They told us that she may not have survived the night. There was a big chance that she wouldn't walk and talk again.
Doctors performed the risky procedure of inserting a device into Jess's head to monitor the pressure on her brain. It helps them know how long to keep her under.
If they'd woke her up too early, it could have caused brain damage.
Jess is kept in an induced coma until doctors are satisfied the swelling of her brain is under control. It takes 4 days.
They reduced her sedation and she started moving her arms. And then her eyes opened and I remember holding her hand and saying, if you know Mummy's here, squeeze my hand. And she did straight away.
Because I had to go in hospital. Mummy was quite upset. When I woke up, Mummy was happy.
But Jess faces a battle to return to the active and bubbly little girl she was.
She had to learn how to sit up, eat, talk, walk. She had to learn how to do it all over again.
Incredibly, 18 days later, Jess is managing to do most of that. And the brave little girl is allowed to go home.
And that was the first time she walked on her own. She walked in that door and just went off on her own. She's a little miracle. She's an amazing little girl.
Teenager Vicky, who made the 999 call, and boyfriend Ant were overjoyed to hear the little girl they helped had pulled through.
I was calm on the 999 call, but straight after you just think, what's going to happen to this little girl? Me and Ant went into the Disney store, bought her loads of little presents, bought like teddies and books and everything for her recovery while she's in hospital. Just so amazed by her recovery, so amazed by it.
Mum Katie is so grateful to the local air ambulance service, she's joined them as a volunteer, and Jess was the face of their recent fundraising campaign.
I want to thank the air ambulance and all the other grown-ups who looked after me.
Lives can be turned upside down in a split second when disaster strikes, so there's nothing like a close call to make you feel lucky to be alive. Back in the Pacific Ocean, a team of British amateur rowers are caught in a huge storm. Their boat is damaged and sinking. A rescue yacht has attempted to reach them, but the huge waves mean it's too dangerous.
We could have been crushed by the support yacht if it had got too close.
We were in big trouble. We were in a bad way.
The seawater has blown their electrics, so the only way of communicating with the rescue team on the yacht is by shouting across the raging sea.
They shouted something to the effect of the Coast Guard or a helicopter or something along those lines along the way.
A helicopter is their only hope, but it's going to take 2 hours to get there. It's pitch black, the temperature is below freezing, and as they hunker down in their sinking boat, Fraser, James, Colin and Sam can only hope it stays afloat long enough.
We just literally just huddled together in our immersion suits waiting.
Finally, in the distance, the helicopter appears.
And we just all looked together and saw this red flashing light on the horizon, and it just got closer and closer, and we were like, wow, this is brilliant.
But the rescue isn't going to be straightforward. Survival technician Chris Leon is aboard the US Coast Guard helicopter.
As soon as we put our searchlight on them, you could tell that they were pretty much completely submerged in their boat, and that they had waves were swamping the rowboat.
The footage filmed by the helicopter's onboard camera shows the team's boat close to being swallowed up by the raging sea. The 4 rowers need to be rescued, and fast. Chris is lowered on a winch cable, but he's so concerned he doesn't wait to reach the boat.
He sort of unhooked himself and then just fell into the sea.
So jumping into the ocean from 40 feet, I had trying to keep focus and keep my eye on the boat.
He dove into the sea and we can't see him. He's 200 metres away, it's pitch black.
Chris fights his way through the massive waves and eventually reaches the stricken rowing boat. On board, Sam is now suffering from full-on hypothermia. Chris decides he needs to be rescued first.
I was like frozen, rigid, stiff, and the helicopter's lowering this cage into the sea.
Just below the surface of the water so that Sam could be dragged over the cage and then they could scoop him up and take him up to the helicopter to safety.
This footage shows Sam in the cage being winched up to the helicopter.
Looking down at 3 close mates getting completely destroyed by the ocean, I genuinely realised that any of us could have died within almost no time.
But there's a problem. The helicopter's fuel level means it can only do 1 more pickup. There's no way it can take the whole team.
Because of the weather conditions, they were having to use more fuel to keep in place, and it was the weight of taking everyone off. There wouldn't have been enough fuel to get us all off in one hit.
Fraser, Colin and James are all still stuck in the sinking boat as the sea crashes overhead. Rescue swimmer Chris makes a monumental decision. He sacrifices his place on the helicopter so 2 of them can be saved in the final pickup. He will stay behind with the last rower.
You know, everyone's heart sank. It was completely black out there. The wind was howling.
The crew must decide which of them will remain on board.
I immediately put my hand up and said that I'd stay behind, and I was the skipper, so it wouldn't have been right for me to to go, leaving someone else behind.
I don't like leaving Fraser behind, but then there was a certain amount of faith in Chris. The guy was like superhuman.
There's no time for arguments, so Colin and James are winched up to the safety of the helicopter, leaving Fraser and Coast Guard Chris stranded in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on a sinking boat.
The guy that's in the helicopter closes the door and we fly away. Without Fraser.
Not really a religious person, but I said a little prayer that, you know, he would be safe and well, and him and Chris will, you know, get their turn in a couple of hours.
It's going to take at least 2 hours for the helicopter to return. In the freezing seas, as his team members vanish into the night, Fraser struggles to stay positive.
I'd say at that point it was very difficult to keep spirits up. Yeah, I was very disheartened at that point. I was concerned about if my parents knew what was going on. I was thinking about if the other guys had got back to shore okay, if the helicopter had made it okay.
Rescuer Chris knows he needs to keep Fraser's mind occupied as the boat sinks lower in the water.
We were completely level with the waterline at that point, so I just started asking him how he ended up out here, how did he begin training for this, trying to keep his mind, I guess, off the actual scenario.
It was hugely comforting to have Chris with me at that point. So yeah, that was very much the lowest point.
Then, with the boat barely afloat, after an agonising 2.5-hour wait, the Coast Guard helicopter is back.
Felt really good. We saw it again on the horizon with the searchlight, and then Chris was in contact with the helicopter through the radio and his snorkel.
The helicopter crew lower down the cage and Fraser musters up his last bit of energy to pull himself in. It's now been over 20 hours since he put out the call for help.
I was very exhausted after all that time. In 3 days I'd slept for 1 or 2 hours. We'd hardly eaten during that time. The second I stepped onto the helicopter, I sat down and fell asleep almost instantly.
With Chris also safely out of the water, the helicopter returns to base. It's only when the team are reunited that the full extent of their dice with death sinks in.
I still remember when Fraser got back, we all just looked at each other, and that was the first time I cried.
Those seas were big. It could be said that we were lucky in the fact that our boat was not upturned by a rogue wave.
And with hindsight, and when you speak to family and friends, you then do realise, you know, you were very lucky.
For his selfless actions that night and his heroic rescue of the entire crew, survival technician Chris was presented with the Maritime Organisation's Bravery Award and the eternal gratitude of the 4 rowers.
I think Chris is very brave for deciding to stay with us. At the end of the day, he had to come out and rescue us, and yeah, it's quite a huge thing.
It's the most difficult rescue logistically that I've ever been on, and physically.
Some very emotional stories today. Join us next time for more moving and inspiring Close Calls.